How the heck can you make accounting sexy? I don't think you can, but we're going to have a conversation about accounting because if you don't get it right and you don't understand it, you can go broke. Dana, how you doing?
I am great. Thanks for having me back on.
Man, when you think about accounting, right, you have your personal household accounting, you have your real estate accounting, you have your business hemlane accounting. There's so much stuff going on. Accounting is one of those subjects, debits and credits, that is so boring, but also so important. What do you think?
I couldn't agree that it's one boring, but also can be more complex than you think. The second folks start talking about depreciation and to your point, debits and credits, and you're talking about the balance sheet versus the income statement. There's just a lot that goes into it. And then don't forget when you say GL account, someone who has not taken an accounting class actually gets it's very intimidating
Yeah.
and you see that it hasn't been especially QuickBooks has done actually quite a decent job with trying to tone it down and make it easy to understand, but it can be rather intimidating, especially when you're just starting out with your first rental, unless you have an accounting or finance degree.
Yeah, it's a funny story about accounting. So again, that was my first job out of college. I was a general ledger accountant. So GL, general ledger. But my first accounting class, it took it at De Anza Junior College because
Yeah.
I wanted a business degree. That was my plan going to De Anza, right? I got an F. I got an F. And the reason I got an F is because I went for the first couple of weeks and I stopped going. It was such a horrible, boring class. So, long story short, I had to go retake the class because I couldn't get into Santa Clara University with an F on my report card, and ultimately got an A in the class. But man, first, like I think I was 18 taking this GL class. I'm like, who the heck does this stuff? It was terrible. It was kind of funny.
And a second time is a charm with it. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that you really do need to understand the books because for example, let's just say you have money in your bank account from security deposits. Don't
Sure.
forget, you have to send that back to the tenants. That is not money that you could be using.
Yeah.
And so of course that is a liability. You have to send it back. It's not an asset that you own. And so
Correct.
it's really important to understand this stuff. And what we're trying to do as a phased approach is make it where you don't have to have a degree in accounting or you don't have to suffer through the class that Michael, you suffered through at Dianza College in
I
order
just suffered
to
through it twice.
understand what's going on.
Yeah. No. Again, I think counting is the language of business. It's I just had to grow up. At 18 I wasn't ready. I took it again at 20 and passed with flying colors because I understood how important it was. I mean, you got in real estate, it even goes further, right? There's this whole depreciation is a non-cash expense. What the heck does that mean? Right. So there's a lot of stuff inside of this. So Himlane's tackling accounting, huh?
We're going to do phased approaches. So very similar to anything else that you build, you start with just the infrastructure and getting that set. What's interesting about it is we were very opposed to it initially, building
Hmm,
accounting. And it's exactly what you mentioned, Michael. It's scary. It's not an pleasant experience for anyone going into real estate. It's almost overwhelming.
sure.
And we built Hemlane for the average landlord out there. We didn't build this for institutional
Right.
investors. And so with that, we'd always said, oh, you can sync it with your QuickBooks. There's other ways to go about accounting, but time and time again, we heard, well, we don't want to go to QuickBooks. We don't want to pay
Mm,
for
another
QuickBooks.
thing. Yeah.
And it's also not built for real estate. And so with that, we had said, okay, great. There's so much that you can do in Hemlane initially. And I'll show you guys in a moment here. But there's so much you can do, like recording certain transactions, but now we want to make it easier by syncing your bank accounts, your
Mm,
credit cards, all of your accounts directly to hem lane. And then what you can do is just record the transactions. So this will come out to everyone at no cost. We have a beta coming up,
Wow.
so it's not going to increase any of your subscriptions. Do not worry.
Mhm.
It won't increase your subscription, but what it will do is help you understand your finances a bit more and make it easier for you to manage everything, even if it's not the rent paid on hem lane or the leasing fee that you paid a leasing agent on hem lane. It will all be right in there. So I'm
So,
excited to
so
show it to you.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I want to get a kind. I'm just trying to piece together in my brain what you just told me. Essentially,
Yeah.
what you're building for the base infrastructure is the cash flow statement. It sounded like rent, expenses. That's kind of where we're starting.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to
Okay.
start with the income statement. We have a little on the cash flow. We have something below also that talks about liabilities, which is
Okay.
security deposits. But it's going to be a phased approach that we continue to bring it out. And the reason for that is we don't want it to be overwhelming
Mm.
for investors. It will be cash basis accounting. Michael and I won't even go through accrual based accounting yet. For the larger guys, of course, you will do accrual based accounting, but we're starting with just cash basis accounting and making it easier for you to understand your finances and that you don't have an alligator property,
Yes.
because folks can hide certain things and
Hmm.
try to make it look like their property is performing well. But really, when you sync up all your accounts, it makes it a lot easier to understand and know the truth behind how your property is performing.
Yep. All right. Well, let's see this thing. This ought to be fun. Did Himlane make accounting sexy? Let's see.
Well, perfect. What I'm actually going to do is start here just with what your account used to look like. And so,
Okay.
as you remember, there's your transactions here. Now,
Hmm.
all of this stuff will slightly change. I'm showing it to you just in true um, innovation fashion before it comes out,
Hmm.
what it looks like. But what you can see here is you could click on this, your balance due, and it would only show any of the ones that are past due that you would
Okay.
owe. Some of these will be upcoming as well. Then you can go ahead and click request money at any time. And so don't forget, this is all stuff we've had before. You could
Sure.
say Zuber Road, I want to ask, Deborah, who maybe is assisting with leasing, or she's some sort of admin for you. You could ask money from them to you. You can choose your account and you can go through the process. You
Okay.
can also do it for tenants, right? So you could ask for rent or anything like that from your tenants as well. So I could go through and say, my tenant Linda owes me rent, and you could go through all of these categories. We call them categories rather than GL accounts. This is our toning it down for
Hmm.
the average investor to make it slightly less intimidating for them.
Okay. All right.
And historically, I'm going to show you what historically happened. You could track offline payments. So this would be a process. You would choose the property. You'd say it's money in or money out of your account. You'd select the
Mhm.
property. And then there'd be a category in here as well. So you would go through and select, which property it is, Zuber Road, the category, what it's for, and then you could just go ahead and upload the receipt and add it. You can do
Mm.
this from your phone as well. This is a lot of work. And so we like to look at what our customer interactions are. And there were some customers who would sit here and do 200 of these every month.
Oh
This
my
is not a
gosh.
joke. This is not a joke. They would literally go through and do 200 of manually recording. And so
Mm.
those were the customers we wanted to talk to. Hey,
Sure.
why are you manually doing this? How can we automate and make your life easier?
Hmm.
For it. And so that was the main impetus of it. We
Okay.
also have this settings over here that you can go through and add subcategories. So under rent, you could add, section 8 rent or pet rent. You can separate out things. But again, we're making it where we're not using big words.
Hmm.
We're trying to just make it very, for you, very much of you can go through and see, like, here are examples of things that you could add into these categories, etc.
Hmm.
So this is what we used to have, is just the transactions and everything else was manual. Now this is where we're going, called bank transactions. So it's not fully baked or perfect. You guys are the first ones to ever see it,
Hmm.
besides the product and engineering team. But what you can do is you can add your bank account. So you'd connect your bank account. Again, this is all part of the basic subscription that you have coming out at beta at the end of this month. And what you can do is add a property for the account. However, if it's not a property or it's a portfolio, or this bank account is attached to, or credit card is attached to multiple bank accounts, then do not worry, or sorry, multiple properties, you can go ahead and select the property down below, which I'll
Makes
show you.
sense. Yep.
Now, if the transaction was done on Hem Lane, so let's just say, Michael, you pay your tenant on Hem Lane rent, we will automatically merge the transactions. We'll say
Okay.
this bank account transaction syncs with Michael's Hem Lane transaction. We know it's the same thing based on the statement descriptor, no action needed. We'll go
Okay.
ahead and put that in there. But then here what you'll see is that we also look at different types of transactions that may be from different accounts, and you can merge the transactions or keep them together. So
Mm.
we will look and say, okay, did this come from your credit card? And it was also, there was a payment made on to your bank statement. And you can go through all of these ones here that we have and say, okay, are these the same? And you can say yes and merge them together.
Okay. Makes
Then,
sense.
then what you do is down here, there's excluded. If, like, let's just say you buy something personally and you're like,
Yep.
oh, that's not supposed to be there. You can exclude it. Um,
Yes.
Needs review is all of these ones with the red arrow. We're actually going to make that yellow. So again, you guys are seeing it before it comes out. We don't want it to be too intrusive. Red is a
Right.
negative color. It will be yellow instead, but letting you
Makes
know you
sense.
need to select a property and a category. So you can go through based on your categories and put them in here
Ah, I like it.
and
Okay.
assign it. And then the same with the property. So I could go through and say, this is for Yorkville. And then this would just update to Yorkville as you saw.
Got it.
So you could
Yep.
very quickly go through, you'd click the need reviews to go through all of those. But essentially you can go through all of these transactions that you have. In the future, in future phases, that we will be using what we call smart transactions, which is a
Hmm.
combination of rules, which people are so
Sure.
familiar with, rules to help you set those up, AI to help say, hey, we think that this should be reported to here based on past transactions of how they were recorded. So a
Hmm.
lot more that we can do to take away the manual part of going
Right.
through and categorizing all these. But the good news is, with all of this, is that we will not have those users that come in here and manually add 200 transactions in order
Yeah.
to get it into their reports. Your
Here,
reports are down here.
this is the beauty of this, because if I step back and ask myself, why is somebody inputting 200, essentially manual line items? It's because they're looking at Himlane being the repository for their tax return at the end of the year, right? That's why they're doing it. Now, sure,
Exactly.
they want the monthly statement, they want all that, but really what they're doing is they're trying to make their tax planning or tax preparation easier. And
Yeah.
now what you're giving them is the tool to do that and all the documentation and the history. Um, so that just makes that, once a year arduous event easier. So I can see that already. Yeah, that's cool.
Ye Yeah, and then what you'll see here is you can do it as viewing it as you or any of your team members you have reporting period here. This will continue to be improved, but what you'll go ahead and be able to do is download the Excel and PDF of all of these. And so for those who don't love Excel, they can go through and get it all just recorded on here. And again, all of that comes from your financials tab. It imports directly in here and codes everything out. You'd have your cash flow, which you'll see here, and then you'll see the liabilities I mentioned at the bottom
Mhm.
on there. And then you'd also have the ability to do the income statement as well here and see your
Yeah.
income statement. And so, and here we've made it very simple: pay date versus due date versus deposit
Mm.
date. People, when you say, when are you supposed to be recording these transactions? Well, there's a date that it's due when the tenant actually owed
Yep.
you that, but they
Right.
might pay their rent 2 days early, which
Maybe.
would
Yep.
change, the reporting. And so we put this all in here just to make it really simple for you to understand your financials. So I want to hear what you think.
I think you're onto something. I do. This makes perfect sense for step one. It also makes perfect sense why you're doing this. Again, the people that are doing 200 times makes great sense, but everybody everybody should be doing this. If this continues to go the way I see it, you're going to help all landlords, 1 to, 100, with that year-end tax planning, which is incredibly hard. Um, so you're onto something. There is one thing I don't see here yet. It probably won't even be there in phase 2 or phase 3, but let's talk about depreciation,
Yeah,
right?
that's,
Um,
yep,
a lot a
yep,
lot of a lot of investors don't really understand that depreciation is something you can plan for. I know it's one of those that's tough, but you can get it, right? So usually I think what you would usually need is the property tax statement that divides the value of the building from the land.
yep,
But landlords, after you buy a property and it goes 6 months, they should get that. And
yep.
then it's just, hey, is this residential 27 and a half, or is it commercial? I don't know, whatever it is, 39, 38, whatever it is. Um, but I mean, that's somewhere you could go because I just don't think people realize the value of depreciation and how that looks on their
Yeah.
income statement.
And it's that, as well as also just with certain things, like if you're putting a new roof on and all
Yeah,
of that.
capital.
And
Yeah.
so there's all the capital expenses you have as well. That is all part of our phase two. So
Oh,
we
wow,
can already do
two.
that. We already have that on the
Damn,
long
you don't
term
you don't play.
planning. So we have that on the long term planning. And I think you're right. Most of the reason we put it as phase two first was just Bank Sync to record this stuff,
Oh, of course.
is a lot of landlords, when they're first starting out, they actually don't understand how that works. And so really
No.
making it simple, very similar to merge transactions that we have of, hey, we'll just show you what you should do.
You'd have to
Ours
have
is,
some
how do we
education.
recommend it? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so us being able to help educate you on that is the thought process behind it.
No, it makes perfect sense. I would not have put that in phase 1. You want simple, easy, redundant, repetitive, and you nailed it. Even if you just gave them an average mom and pop landlord this, you've given them 80% of what they need. Then their tax preparer is going to go, okay, what were the capital expenses? Okay,
Exactly.
great, we're going to do those. And oh, by the way, you bought the property at X. So you're giving them, you know, 80% of what's needed and probably 98% of the transactions. So it's pretty nice. I like what I see.
Great. Yeah, and you can always download this, but you can also download, if I go back to the first tab here that we had, you can also download here all the transactions. So
Mm,
for your accountants, you can go ahead and send, here's everything that we had through like the actual transactions, and then here's how we've recorded it all. And
mm.
so they would sync up both summary detailed view coupled with the high level view of which category, or in your case, with GLs being then what was your first job? You were a GL what?
GL accountant.
General ledger accountant. So
Yep.
yeah, that being able to see it both at the summary level as well as the
Yep.
detail level, giving you access to everything.
Yeah, this is really cool. So I know this is I know we're the first to see it, guys. We're so lucky. It's coming out at the end of the month, so it'll probably be in the trial, right? You have a 14-day trial probably later next month.
It will be in the trial as well, starting at the end of this month. We'll have it both
Wow.
in the trial as well as for existing users, and it will be called beta. So you
Okay.
can take it out if you say you don't want to be part of
Yeah.
that, but we want to release it and hear what users think about it, what feedback they have, and all of that.
Folks, Himlane is getting better and better at covering more and more of what mom and pop landlords are doing. If you are a mom and pop landlord or thinking about being a mom and pop landlord, you've got to take the trial. You got to practice. You got to interact. You just got to see what being a landlord's all about. And Himlane's going, frankly, somewhere I didn't see coming, accounting, which is awesome and helping so many people. Any closing thoughts, Dana?
Just mention, if you do try it, mention Michael Zuber for, or sorry, one rental at a time, either one for 20% off, because it's the highest discount you will ever get here at Hemlane. So just mention Zuber for 20% off your first year.
We are honored. Thank you for being here each week. I love what the folks are doing, the engineers and product managers. It's been a long time since I've been in one of those meetings, but it's fun to live vicariously through you. So keep it up.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. Thanks.